Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 9 of Buffalo TalkCenter. I am Don. With me today is Cal. We've actually both shown up at the same time to 2 consecutive meetings. This is a pretty monumental occasion, and we got a lot to talk about. Not really. It's the off season. But Cal, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm surviving. We talked a little bit before we got on about my ASMR introductions. So, folks, if you like that, if you want me to get more ASMR, I can really do that for you guys. A nice, soothing voice. We can make it work. We can make it happen. But I think the top news of the week, Cal, is the Bowen Byram news. He just was re-signed to a 2-year extension. A little surprising, if you ask me, but, what are your thoughts on Bo Byram?
Yeah, I've been saying that he's going to get traded for the longest time. Absolutely shocked that he ends up staying in Buffalo, but it seems like that's their plan. Some people are saying potentially this means that they're going to look to get rid of Mattias Samuelsson. Maybe they think that might be their way out from Samuelsson, keeping Byram, and then they know even if they got to give up stuff to get rid of him, they'll be able to. It leaves a giant gap open in the top 6 forward spot, though, not trading him. And, of course, Peterka's gone. So your offense, if they do nothing else this offseason, which I'd be shocked by, is very weak. But that defense is the best it's been in a long time as well. So you kind of take and give. And I don't think it's going to work out for them. I think they're still a forward away from being a realistic playoff team. But who knows? Maybe this is all they needed, and maybe the better defense will lead to better goaltending, and maybe you only need to score 2 to 3 goals a game to win.
Yeah, well, that's certainly what they're betting on. We've talked about it previously, but I think that the Sabres don't really view losing Peterka and all those goals as a huge problem. Clearly, based on their the way that they've gone about with this whole Byram situation, if you're going to trade Byram, you're going to try to trade him for a top 6 forward. In the end, they felt comfortable enough keeping Bo Byram for at least another season or 2. So maybe they're betting on in-house improvements from Yuri Kulik and Zach Benson and Jack Quinn. We're doing this again, Cal. Hope is a shitty strategy. We talked about it before.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't work. It's
not great, right?
Yeah. It's pretty brutal. Another year of Kevin Adams in a make-or-break season. He's betting on his young guys taking the next steps. That strategy sure hasn't bitten him in the ass over the last 2 seasons.
No, it's the same thing they've done every year. And you look back, a couple seasons ago, and that was the thing, right? Oh, we trust our guys. These guys want to be here, and it just hasn't worked out. And it's repetition. And at this point, again, I guess the defense looks good. That'll be something. We'll be watching a much different structurally built team, and maybe Lindy Ruff will use that to his advantage. Again, a former defender in the league. Maybe he shifts back to his original coaching skills, which was heavy defense and gritty forward play, and maybe it suits him well, and he's able to coach this team and somehow get to a point at the trade deadline where they're in it and they are willing to make a move. Again, I could probably count it a million before that happens, but who knows? There is a chance, and I guess we can't really, call them out completely until we see the results. So we'll see what happens. Again, I'd be shocked if the Sabres aren't at least in talks to try to do at least one more move before the season starts. Still got plenty of time, but it is later in the offseason now, and they simply haven't done enough.
Yeah, they haven't. I think at best this team is a 94-point team. But more realistically, given how this team just absolutely loses itself in Decembers, we're probably looking at another 80-something team, which is definitely not enough to make the playoffs. And, well, we've complained a lot over the very brief history of this podcast about Kevin Adams and the job that he's doing and how the Sabres just continue to tear us apart. And I don't know. I'm kind of over the Sabres at this point. We'll probably still talk about them next week, Cal. Knowing us.
We definitely will. But, you want to shift focus to the old Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, we haven't talked about the football team of Buffalo. Did you know that there's a football team in Buffalo? Well,
I've heard
our
of
viewers
it
probably
a
had no
couple
idea.
times.
Well, yeah, our viewers probably had no idea that there was a football team in Buffalo, given how little we cover them over the last few weeks. But to be honest, there's been nothing really to talk about other than the fact that training camp is coming up here in on Monday, tomorrow.
No,
we're recording this on the 20th.
Yeah, so I think we're like 3 days away at this point. By the time this comes out, 3 days away from training camp, which is really exciting. Again, they're back at St. John Fishers. The team has some work to do. I think the return of the red and blue is coming up as well, so that'll be the first event at the stadium, which will be having its last final year at the old stadium before they move across the street. We got some position battles to talk about, and I know we're going to make videos about it, and I know we're going to, continuously talk about it, on this podcast as training camp advances. But let's start off with an early one, and let's talk about the tight end position. You got Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid. Both guys had disappointing years. You would have liked to see more out of both of them last year. It seems most fans, where their heads are at, is they're expecting the moon from Dalton Kincaid, and they've kind of moved on from Dawson Knox. They've slotted him into a more blocking guy, a situational guy. I still believe in Dawson Knox. I think people are kind of throwing him out too soon. With that being said, though, if a healthy Dalton Kincaid shows up and stays healthy this year, he could be that guy that we thought we drafted. And again, he hasn't shown his top potential yet, but he's a guy who gets open in space. He's a guy who can make crazy good catches, which unfortunately we've seen kind of the opposite side of that. We've seen some really bad drops from him, including the end of that playoff game against the Chiefs last year. But I'm excited for our tight end position. I like both guys. When healthy, I think they'll both be good. What's your opinion on this? Do you think that, maybe Dawson Knox has a better year and, overtakes that tight end one spot again? Or do you think it's Kincaid's spot to lose? And do you think Kincaid can bounce back from a really bad year?
I hope Kincaid can bounce back. I think he will. By the start of the season, you'll probably have Dalton Kincaid in a 1A, Dawson Knox 1B sort of situation with another blocking tight end rounding out the tight end group. But I have been really disappointed with Dalton Kincaid up to this point in his career. He was expected to be the next Travis Kelce. Obviously hasn't been that. Nowhere close to that. And I think Dawson Knox has sort of been relegated to, like you said, a more blocking role. And even before that, both of our tight ends have got some issues with drops, right? Wouldn't you say? Mm-hmm. I don't know what the exact statistics are on this, but Kincaid had a really poor season, him and Keon Coleman, in terms of how many targets they had dropped. And like you said, that Chiefs game where he dropped the 4th and 5, an absolutely brilliant ball from Josh Allen. I feel like that did he go on to Tyler Dunn's podcast recently and he talked about it, or Tyler Dunn was like going to bat for the Kincaid, saying, it was a tough catch to make for any guy. He was just kind of spinning around and jumping for it. And I have to disagree a little bit. I think that catch was very much in line with his performances throughout the season. As a guy who took him in fantasy, he just disappeared. Too many weeks, all right? He was just extremely inconsistent, and I don't know if he were dealing with injuries or whatnot. I know he's had the knee thing for a little while now. He's stretching back to 2 seasons ago even. But I've been really disappointed in Kincaid, and I know that fans are expecting the moon of him. I'm a little more pessimistic on him. I don't know if we're going to see more from him.
Yeah, going back to that catch, I mean, it's not a routine catch in any sense of the imagination for an NFL player. Again, they're not trained to kind of sit in coverage, and then it's like, you don't see that. That's not a scripted play where it's like, all right, 20 seconds later, I'm going to chuck you a ball that you got to jump back for and dive. But it's an NFL player. You got to make that catch. Moving on, because we can't sit here and dwell about Chiefs losses. If we do, I'm going to throw up about 5 times before the end of this podcast. Let's talk about the defensive line, because there's going to be a heavy competition there. We know Bean and McDermott love to keep a bunch of guys on the D-line and rotate them around. Can we talk about Joey Bosa? Because I feel like nobody's been talking about Joey Bosa. People have forgotten that Joey Bosa is a member of the Buffalo Bills right now. That should significantly help the pressure rate that the Bills have this year. Again, Greg Rousseau, a guy who has an unreal ceiling, but just hasn't really put it together game and game and game. Right? It's kind of every fourth game with him. Epinesa, lower ceiling, a guy kind of like Rousseau, though, that shows up once every 4 games. And it seems like when the Bills D-line, when a guy on the D-line gets going, it's one guy. It's never, multiple guys. It's one guy, and then the next week it's another guy, which is good in one sense, but also bad because nobody is consistent. I feel like Leonard Floyd was the last consistent defensive lineman we had on this team, which is crazy to say, but who else has there been in the last couple of years?
You had a half or 3/4 of a season with Von Miller, but like you said, that's pretty much it. There hasn't been really anything since the Bills let go some of their big guys from 2019. I think of Jordan Phillips, Jerry Hughes, Star Lutulele. No, not really. Not Star. Star was disappointing. But I think with Greg Rousseau, Kellen, you can disagree if you want, but with Greg Rousseau, he's got so much talent. But the problem has been that the Bills haven't really had a guy on the opposite side of the D-line. So teams have been able to put all of their focus into Greg Rousseau because they know that the other guy at the end of the other side of the D-line, that could be, Epinesa, some of these other guys, Dwayne Smoot, Carter maybe, they're not really game breakers the way that Greg Rousseau has shown he can be. So it's allowed teams to double, triple team him, put an extra running back to help chip him as well. And I think with Joey Bosa, that's going to bring an added dimension because teams are going to have to worry about him. Joey Bosa has proven in this league that he can get after the quarterback pretty consistently when he's on the field, of course. So that's definitely a nice thing to have it on both sides. And I feel like that's what the thought process was for Brandon Beane when he brought in Von Miller, another guy who is veteran, can show Rousseau the ropes, has been proven to, been a consistent Pro Bowler, probably going to be in the Hall of Fame, get to the quarterback, get him with ease. And before his injury, that's what Von Miller did. It's just the signing didn't work out after that.
Yeah, and Von Miller, congrats to Von, $10 million deal to the Commanders. Hopefully he does well there. Again, I know he had some legal trouble here as well, but hoping that the judgment was right on that and that nothing happened there. He seemed like a great guy in Buffalo. Definitely did a lot for the community. It was a good team guy in the locker room, so that's good. And wishing him the best over there in Washington. But yeah, I mean, it leaves our D line with a hole there, but I think Joey Bosa will more than fill that hole. A couple of other good additions: Ogunjobi and Hoyt coming over, both guys suspended for the first 6 games.
Yep.
So that's a little unfortunate, but I think they'll be able to hold their own again. The Bills' schedule isn't too bad this year. That could always change. Of course, we always make schedule judgments, and then the first 3 weeks of the season happen, and we go, "Oh boy, we were wrong about these 5 teams and wrong about these 5 teams," and they flip flop in our power rankings and all that sort of stuff. So we don't truly know what the schedule looks like, but preseason-wise, looks pretty solid. Looks like the Bills should be able to easily make the playoffs. I don't want to say anything about the division yet because I haven't seen how, the new-look Patriots, they have certainly gotten better. Are you a little concerned about the division, or do you think the Bills walk it again?
I'm not very concerned about it. I still think the second-best team in the division are the Dolphins. Even with all of their defensive issues and the fact that they've never been able to stop the Bills and that their fans are obnoxious and annoying, with all those problems going against them, I still think the Dolphins are the second best. Because, look, the Patriots did get better, yes, but they were so bad last season that they could only get better. There was no way they could have gotten worse. And I also hope they don't, maybe it's good if they become good again, because then we can bring in Stephon Diggs and have a real heated rivalry. I feel like that's a storyline no one's really been talking about. The fact that Stephon Diggs decided to sign for our arch rivals over there in Boston. So, if I've not been a big time Stephon lover since he left Buffalo. He's kind of been treating us pretty poorly, I'd say.
Yeah, we don't know all the details about that, but yeah, I mean, the Patriots, again, Mac Hollins, too, another former Bills receiver, jumping ship over there to New England, getting paid good. Good for Mac Hollins. Again, loved him in Buffalo. Definitely outperformed what I thought he was going to be. Was he a good receiver? a mid-tier guy, but I thought he definitely brought some energy and was a great locker room guy. Good to see him get the bag. A thing that some people are talking about is Terry McLaurin potentially unhappy in Washington. Could you imagine the Patriots getting him? They've been linked a little bit. If that happens, then I am a little bit concerned about that offense. But right now, I'm not too concerned. I'm with you where I think the Dolphins are coming into the season the team to beat the Jets. No more Aaron Rodgers, so they probably will be a little bit better there. Aaron Rodgers obviously going to the Steelers. Again, it's tough. We're filming this before camp has started, so next week and the weeks after we'll really deep dive into the Bills. But you want to do a little bit of generic league talk, like some projections. Do you have any hot takes for the league this year? Anything that you think maybe a team does better than what everyone's saying, or vice versa?
I think this is the year where the Steelers do not finish above 500. I think they will finish with an 8-9 record and miss the playoffs. That doesn't feel too controversial, but it's the Steelers and Mike Tomlin. They always find a way to get to 9 wins. I think this is probably the even more controversial part of that take. I think the Jaguars replace the Steelers in the playoff picture.
Ooh, okay. Big
That's
Trevor
my hot
Lawrence
take.
bounce back year.
I'm not even a big Trevor Lawrence guy. I just like the crew that they brought in. I like Liam Cohen, even though he's a little cringe master. Yep. But I thought I thought their team was good.
Duval.
They definitely added Duval. Yeah. I'm just mainly a big Travis Hunter guy. I love Travis Hunter, and if they can play him on defense where they desperately need him, that'd be great for that team.
Yeah, Travis Hunter, absolute beast, right? Like I don't care if you hate Coach Prime in Colorado and all that. Just put that aside. He's in the league now, and Travis Hunter is going to be a very fun piece of the NFL for a long time. I'd love to see him get some reps on offense too, because I agree with what they did. They're starting him on defense. I think no matter where he went, I would have liked to see him start as a cornerback. I feel like that's always when you're younger, you can definitely play that. But maybe as he gets a little bit older and loses a step with speed wise, maybe he flips to the opposite side of the ball. Who knows? It's pretty rare in football to see that at the highest level of college football. I know we see that in baseball all the time with the two-way players, and even football in like high school, but college-wise, not so much. For me, I can also see the Steelers not making the playoffs and not having that 500 record. Again, watching Rodgers last year, he still made some good throws, but some games were just brutal.
Yeah, if you get the littlest bit of pressure on this guy, he can't move anymore. Aaron Rodgers has no more mobility due to the injury and his age as well. They're compounding factors. So, and I'm also not impressed with the Steelers' O-line. So this is kind of a formula where it's not going to go well. Aaron Rodgers kind of be setting up to fail, which I'm not too sad about that. It's Aaron Rodgers. I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with the Steelers not being good. They've been mediocre forever. They need to commit, and I feel like them missing the playoffs will force them to commit one way or the other, whether or not they want to rebuild or go all in while they still have TJ Watt. So
yeah, they're kind of in a tough spot because they're kind of just in the middle, can't get over the hump right now. And like you said, like TJ Watt getting that massive deal, that's good for him. Again, I saw JJ Watt on X put out, if this man even thinks about making me reach for my wallet at dinner, I'm going to go crazy. But yeah, good to see that. Big money there. Let's talk Bengals a little bit. Still some money issues over there in Cincinnati. Is Texas A&M going to have the Bengals first round pick playing for them this year? Is that what we're hearing?
Well, Shemar Stewart, he has shown no desire to sign in Cincinnati, and it's not because he doesn't want to play in Cincinnati. It's because the Bengals are just nickeling and diming him. They're not giving him all of his money. He wants more. Now, do I think this is a toxic culture where you have first-round picks getting a little greedy? Yes and no. Yes, because they haven't proven anything. Why do they think they're entitled to their money? Conversely, these are first-round picks. You're not guaranteed to have more than 2 years in the NFL. You want to get as much bag as you can while you still can, right? So I get both sides of it, but it's leading to a very weird situation in Cincinnati. And Hey, as a Bills fan, I'm all here for it. Anything to make that Bengals defense even worse than it already is.
Yeah, it's going to be another year, I think, where Joe Burrow is going to have to put up 50-plus to get wins unless he's playing the Carolina Panthers. It's a tough situation there in Cincinnati, and hopefully they get that figured out, because if you let a kid go back to college and with a lawsuit, that just opens up a window for absolute chaos in the future. A guy is getting drafted and going back, getting drafted, going back. They can't let that happen. Have to fix that situation for sure. There's been some talk around the league, that some rule changes that could come up in the future, some schedule changes that could come up in the future, maybe cutting another preseason game, adding another regular season game. We saw the NHL just did that in their new agreement, adding 2 regular season games, cutting some preseason. Do you think the NFL and the CBA and all that will ever let an extra game be played? Because I know the Players Association is definitely against it, right? Anything with more games and equal pay or similar contracts is obviously going to cause a scene, especially in a physical game such as football. Do you think they ever allow that to happen? Because it's a lot of money that they're leaving off the table if they decide not to do it, but players are certainly at risk of more injuries.
Well, I think the only way it happens is if there's a compromise. If you add another NFL game, you probably have to add another bye week, and that increases your season by another 2 weeks. At which point, do you just get rid of the preseason entirely? Like, you're pushing back your schedule pretty substantially. That's the only way, though, that the NFLP is going to go for another game like that, an 18th game. It's through adding another bye week, which, probably is good. I think they should already have a second bye week, to be honest, because especially if you have like a bye week, say in week 6, then that's 13 straight games, 13 straight weeks of absolutely brutal wear and tear on your body. But that's the only way they go for it. I wouldn't be crying to see the preseason games go away. I'm sure the coaches and execs who are trying to evaluate their rosters in the off seasons probably would like to keep those. They'd very much be against those, be against losing another preseason game. I think at the most, if you got rid of that third preseason game, because usually that's the one that doesn't matter, right? Even now with 17 weeks, the third preseason game, you start your 4th and 5th stringers and just kind of relax a little bit. That game doesn't exactly matter very much. But if you're going to add another game and then add another bye week, where are you going to get that extra week from? Are you going to push the regular season back into January? Or are you going to move up the start of each season and make it the first week of September right before Labor Day? You don't really have any other options.
Yeah, and you talk about adding a second bye week. I've always thought that there should be league-wide bye weeks, and now I know that you may say, oh, that's not great because the leagues offer a week and money-wise and all that. Number one, there's always an issue with scheduling, right? You play a team fresh off their bye week and you lose, and you're going to complain about that. And then it goes back the other way too. But some teams end up playing 3 teams in a row fresh off their bye week, and you have a tired group going into a late bye week, and it could really change the point of a season. So what if they had like week 6 and week 12 were your 2 league-wide bye weeks, and everyone got a week off? It's even for every single team. And you kind of give the hot weather teams a bye week when it gets hotter out. You give the cold weather teams a bye week when in a snowy week, and it evens out. I don't know if that would ever be a thing. Obviously, the NFL, because they love their money, would have to find something to fill those weekends with. The football fans wouldn't care. I mean, college football would just say, okay, well, week 6 and 12, we're just going to put half the slate on Sunday and call it a day, and every football fan would be happy. But obviously the NFL would be losing money on that as well. That makes you think maybe a week 12 or 13 Pro Bowl in the middle of the year, bring that back where it's actually real football with, softer tackling. But, you bring something like that back, maybe, I don't know. But I think they certainly are going to have to add another bye week, like you said, and maybe that's the solution there, set bye weeks.
Yeah, well, I don't think that seems like a radical proposal. Definitely one that the NFLPA would be getting behind. I don't think I could ever see the NFL doing that, though. They want money consistently every single week. They don't want to leave 2 weeks on the table because you're just condensing all the others. And maybe you get that same profit, but you could also stretch it out to those additional 2 weeks. So I still think you get your random team bye weeks. But again, if you're going to add another game, you're going to have to add another bye week. There's no way the NFLP is going to go for it any other way. There's not a compromise. That is the compromise. That is the compromise. Because at this point, the NFLPA, like we said before, they don't want to add another game. They were vehemently opposed to adding a 17th game to begin with. So, you keep walking down that line. And I don't know. With the NFL, I don't understand why they want to keep adding games to begin with. I get there's revenue to be that's being left on the table, but I kind of miss the days where there were only 16 games. The more games you add, the less each individual one, the less important each individual game is.
Yeah, 100%. Again, you can't add too many games. Like, again, if they came out next season, they're like, oh, we're doing 20 games. That would be extreme. That would be way too much. Adding one more game would be okay, but that's where it has to stop. Again, you run the risk of making the games mean less, and we see what happens in the MLB. Again, you got over 160 games. You have the dog days of summer where the stadium's a quarter full, in some cities half full. Even the major markets don't sell out games because so what if you lose, so what if you win? It doesn't matter, right? You're trying to win the series. You're trying to win 7 out of 10 or 6 out of 10. A single game doesn't really matter, and football could not be more opposite, right? Football, I think that's why it's so popular in the United States too, is every game is just so pivotal. But at the same point, you can make the counter argument where you add an extra game and maybe a team like the Panthers last year or a really bad team last year, they're not out of it by week 6 or 7. They're still hanging around in the wild card race because they could, win 8 of their last 9 and get in instead of being ruled out of the playoffs halfway through the season. So there's arguments both ways. Let's talk a little bit more about training camp now. Are you planning on going to training camp this year? Do you find that exciting at all to watch them at St. John Fisher's?
It used to get me excited. Given my work schedule, I probably won't be able to make it out there. It's training camp. This team is pretty much set. If there's, during the drought years where there's so many more question marks and maybe as to who the starting quarterback's going to be, who your top wide receivers are, starting D-line. Maybe then I go out because there's just so much more on the line. But the Bills have been pretty set. Their core roster is here. We know what it's going to be week 1. There's only a few tertiary issues that Sean McDermott's got to go through. And that's a good thing. I'm not complaining about that. It's just it's not enough of a draw to bring me out to Rochester. But I may go to, what the Blue and Red Day or something, that scrimmage.
Yeah, I went to that I think 2 years ago, and the only reason I went was to watch Matt Ariza, which is a weird thing to say now, of course, but that was the draw, right? And it's kind of weird because the Bills added heavy defense this year, and if you're a team that adds heavy defense, if you're going to training camp, you're not going to see those guys really do too much. But again, if you get a new quarterback or a new running back or a new wide receiver, it's very biasly offense there. So, again, the Bills haven't added too much on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think anyone's really going to be making any special trips to go out there, but I'm sure it will be sold out every single time because just the people in Rochester that are right there are going to go to that as always.
Yeah, probably. And that's always been designed to get more Rochester folks involved and engage with the Bills. That's always for them, cater towards them. We got everything here in Buffalo. But, Cal, speaking of all these league-wide changes and format changes, there's been some rumblings recently over the NHL that whenever Gary Bettman steps aside in the next few years, he finally retires, that the NHL may look to do what the NBA has sort of done, the MLB as well, and have a play-in wild card sort of game. What are your thoughts on something like that?
So initially, again, I'm going to be against the idea. When the NBA first did it, I was against the idea, and then I watched the play-in, and it's just more important games, fun playoff games for somebody who is a Knicks fan, but there's no team in Buffalo. The Knicks have not been in the play-in yet, so I don't really know cheering for a team in it how it would be, but I find it entertaining. Again, I'm not going to watch just a random NBA game on a weekday, but all of a sudden it's a play-in game, it's a best of one, all of a sudden I'm completely involved. So I think it's a good idea. Am I biased as a Sabres fan saying yes, 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 please get us in any way possible? Yes, because any playoff appearance could change the trajectory of this franchise. We saw it with the Bills. But if the NHL does it, I don't mind it. I think it gets more people involved, more teams involved, more fans involved, creates more crazy moments. We saw how well the Four Nations tournament did this year with just more eyes on hockey. So more important games. Sounds good to me. Again, the play-in is for teams that wouldn't make the playoffs or are fringe playoff teams anyway. The team that would have made the playoffs just has to win one of 2 games if they do it how the NBA does. And then other teams that aren't going to be, it would just be an extra team. So I don't know. It's a decent idea, but if they don't do it, I'm not in shambles either. I think the NBA's done a good job with it, but the NHL, I don't know. They struggle with marketing and all that, so I don't know how it would go.
Well, maybe they wouldn't struggle if they had a different commissioner. Hint, hint, Gary, get out of the way.
Yeah.
And speaking of the home office for the NHL, Chris Johnston, insider for The Athletic, was reporting earlier this week or maybe last weekend about how the NHL is growing increasingly concerned about the direction of the Buffalo Sabres. And if that's true, what took them so long? It's been 14 years. Yeah, you should be concerned.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. It's been the same thing for 10 of those 14 years, right? There hasn't been a change. It's not like, we're trying this and then, we're trying that. No, like there's been a couple, all-in gives. Again, the O'Reilly, Vander Kane era, then Taylor Hall, that's going to get us to the Stanley Cup. No, it's not. And the last 5 years especially have been zero effort to get anyone in here besides, mid-tier players that are going to play very mid-tier, and we're going to sit again below the playoffs. Again, I'm excited for the season to start just because I'm ready for hockey and I want to watch Sabres hockey again. But at the same time, like this is the least excited I've been, least optimistic I've been, I should say. Which maybe that's a good thing. Maybe they got us all sleeping and they're gonna overachieve instead of underachieve like they always do.
Yeah, I don't know. The Sabres, anything to get Terry Pegula's dead hands away from Buffalo. Or from the Sabres. Get him away from day-to-day operations. He's not involved day-to-day in the Bills, and look how they're going.
Exactly.
Just leave the Sabres alone. You can watch. You can go to every single game like you normally do. Just stop making personnel decisions, Terry. You don't know what you're doing. You're not the president of hockey ops. Oh, gosh, Kale, we did it again. We talked about the Sabres. Damn it.
Always find a way in. Always find a way in. They are.
Absolutely. Literally. I think we're going to close today's podcast off. We got one more topic I want to briefly discuss, and that is, again, the Buffalo potential USL soccer team. We briefly mentioned it for like 30 seconds last week, but Cal, you actually texted me this earlier this week, talking about some recent developments here with the Buffalo Pro Soccer Stadium, that they could be looking to a downtown location. You have anything else you want to say about that? Any other details?
Yeah, downtown location. They're back to behind the Buffalo News here. Let's see if I can pull up the exact details here, which is probably the best possible spot. Yeah, they're in a rush to kick off in 2026. Help pushed by a team to the now discarded Elk Street site. Public funding may not be needed now, which is really good. A whole lot of money behind it in a short span. So, hey, the less public funding needed, the better. Again, you don't want that to affect taxes either. And then, of course, the Buffalo News site, that's going to be where they probably put it. Again, they haven't started yet. Nothing is confirmed yet, but they better start working on that thing because I'm sick of hearing about it. We want soccer here in Buffalo. It'll be exciting. As somebody who's starting to watch more, get into whatever, and we'll see the World Cup and all that coming to the United States as well next season or next year. It's going to be a fun one, and I think USA Soccer, I will continue to be disappointed year in and year out. How do we have the best athletes in the world? And it's just it's tough because the best athletes in most other countries play soccer. We see it in the Olympics, right? Certain countries just dominate in one sport or the other sport, but there's no one as completed as the United States. The United States provides athletes at the top of the game in every single sport. It's just if you are a person in the United States and you're one of the most athletic people, in your school, whatever, you're not going to be playing soccer, right? You're going to be playing football because it's more cool or whatever. You're going to be playing hockey because you're from Minnesota or up north and it's the cool thing to do. You're going to be playing baseball because you're from the South and that's the cool thing to do. Soccer doesn't really have, it's kind of like, if you're a kicker for football and you don't go to college for it, then you transition to soccer. Or you're super fast and you're done doing track, you transition to soccer. You look at some of these other countries, they are all in on soccer, and I love it. The atmosphere is great. I was somebody who used to not like soccer. I like it now. I enjoy watching soccer. It's just one of those things where I don't think the United States is ever going to be at the top like some of these other dominant countries are in Europe and South America. I just don't think they're ever going to be at that level, but hopefully they improve as the years go on.
Yeah, I agree. Well, one of the big problems here, and other YouTube channels have spoken about this before, it's that soccer is a very elitist sport here in America. It costs a lot of money to get your kid into a good soccer program. I used to play soccer, and it was expensive. I didn't play soccer anymore because of that. And it's unfortunate because as you look around the world, the best athletes are able to play soccer because it's very accessible. You can do it anywhere. You can do it almost any time of this year. You just need a clear field, a soccer ball, and a net. It's pretty easy. And unfortunately, the American system and how they run it with U.S. Soccer Federation, it's very expensive, elitist. You got to have connections as well to get up into the world. You almost have to send your kids out to one of these academies, youth academies, very early on when they're really young, and that just breaks up families and that causes more problems than are really necessary. So there's a lot of problems with the soccer system here in America, which has kind of inhibited its growth compared to other nations and other countries and regions. But it's getting better. I mean, the MLS is growing. The USL with this new relegation promotion tier system that they're doing, that the Buffalo hopefully is involved in, that's pretty exciting as well. And I've said it before, but I'm going to be a huge supporter of this Buffalo soccer team whenever it comes out. I'm extremely excited for it because I've always loved soccer. We've talked about this so many times off air, but we are both soccer fans now. So the sooner they can get the stadium built, yeah, for real. And the sooner they can get the stadium built, the sooner they can start getting some players in, some personnel as well, with coaching staff, get fans in the stands, and we'll be happy. Yeah. And if they put it downtown, right across from the KeyBank Center and behind the Buffalo News Stadium, that's pretty cool. You got a mini sports district, kind of, right? Yeah. With the Sabres, the soccer stadium, and then Salem Park right across the highway there. That's kind of cool for downtown. That'd be another potential source of economic cash flow there for downtown Buffalo as they try to get rejuvenated again.
Grow soccer in the area, have championship games at that field as well, very easy. And you said, one more point on United States soccer. All the guys on Team USA, they go overseas to play, right? Or a majority of them do. They've all had youth camps and they go to school in the UK or in Europe. We got to start building up the program in the United States, but one step at a time.
One brick by brick, one step at a time, as he said. But anyways, folks, that's going to do it here for episode 9 of Buffalo TalkCenter. I am Don. This is Cal. Like I said, this is Buffalo TalkCenter. Make sure to follow this if you're listening on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Like and subscribe if you're watching us on the YouTube and you're still around. We appreciate y'all watching. This was a fantastic outro. Did not stumble my words whatsoever. And we will see y'all next Monday. Cheers.